Well, good Wednesday evening to you. How are you guys? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. And I, of course, am the one. And as far as science knows, the only, the Dungeon Delver. And I hope you're all aware of how lucky we all are because of that. But how are you, folks? How are you doing this evening? I hope you're all doing fine and dandy. I'm doing okay. We had a lot of fun last night because it was the 4th, and I ended up not really doing much. I just sort of ran with the stream as it was. You know, I kicked off at I think 11:30 or something, and we went till almost 2 in the morning, and we had a lot of good conversation about just about everything, about every topic. And I'm going to reach over here. Things are a little different now. If you haven't noticed, I have monitor stands, so it makes things a little different. I got my Guinness. I didn't think it apropos to be drinking a brew from overseas on the 4th, so yeah, this is the first one I'm having. But no, we had a lot of fun last night. We just talked about things. Existential horror. We talked about Dungeon, the board game. And that brings up tomorrow night, I think we're going to do a dip into, if I can find a good PDF of the rules so you guys can read along. We're going to do kind of a fun dip into Hero Quest and why Hero Quest is so great. The Barbarian. So we're going to do that. Damien, good to see you. But tonight, I'm passing the talking stick to you guys. If there's anything you guys want to ask me, D&D related, Delver related, show related, whatever, the floor is open. All right. Mi casa es su casa. But anyway, so that's what's going to be going. That's what's going to be going. Orbital Air, good to see you. Venger, good to see you. Local Gumby. Connect. Clark, did I say hi to Clark? I think I said hi to Clark. John Stewart, of course. Jack Photon. I got your emails, Jack. I did get your emails and I read them. I haven't responded to them yet, but I will. You've given me a lot to think about. Can you see maps of Castle Greyhawk? No. And I don't say that just to be irascible and nasty. I would like to publish them someday. I would like the world to see them in a properly arrayed format. Now, obviously, I won't be able to call it Castle Greyhawk, right? It'll be Castle Delve. But someday, hopefully, you'll get to. Roll Tide, Greg. Dwemer. It comes, I think it's Germanic or Old English or Welsh. Dwemer, essentially magic, a magic aura, a magic countenance around something. Dwemer craft, the craft of the study of magic and so on. And I hope that helps. Boomers, get out. Have I ever GM'd an evil party? Have I ever GM'd an evil party? I have GM'd lots of completely amoral parties. A party that is just comprised of evil characters? No, I have not. I have not done that. I gathered, Clark. You guys are going to be SEC, though. You guys are going to be in the SEC. You're going to have to deal with us every season. Who will you be fed into? The joyless murder ball of the Alabama Crimson Tide? The nascent, crushing, suffocating abilities of Georgia? The chaotic evil of Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss Rebels? Or will you have to go to Florida and play in 114-degree Fahrenheit temperatures? Do I have an organized creative process, or does it just sort of come to you? I try to I try to organize my thoughts. Eric, you know what? That's a darn good question. Put that up there. But anyway, once I have a general outline of what I want to do, I let creativity guide me. Like I will build an outline of ideas. Like, I know what is on the uttermost level of Castle Delve, specifically. Now, but when I was just thinking what would be really cool to put down there, I was like, this, and oh, that's too cool. And I just kind of let my brain wander in ridiculous directions. But there are other places where I have outlines like, okay, this entire area, this entire corner of the map is a layer of knolls. Okay, and then I go to the Dungeon Master's assistant and I generate X number of knolls, and then I start populating the rooms with set amounts of knolls. Have I ever played or run a game for someone who played an assassin? No, I have not. What were the final counts for the guac? So I think we had about 85 people registered. I think probably 60 people played. Maybe it was a little bit less. Maybe it was closer to 40. So I think we did about 50% of our signups were actual attendance. Excuse me, guys. I have this wonderful little fan over here, but I can never quite get it straight, so it was just kind of blowing uselessly out across the middle of the table. But I think I actually got it tonight. So that's about my take on it, Jack. And next week, I'm going to start sending out emails. The rest of this week, I'm going to be sending out packages to winners from the first drawing. Next week, I'm going to start sending out emails to people who won stuff. Now, the Dungeon Master's assistant, so at the same time that the gold box games came out from SSI, Pool of Radiance, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Pool of Darkness, blah, 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 blah. They also released 2 utilities for like the Commodore 64, Apple II, maybe even for the Atari 800, 400 line. But for the PC, for the Macintosh, for the Amiga, and everything. And it basically takes the drudgery out of creating monster encounters, like random monster encounters. You can just gin up like that. And if you're on a virtual tabletop, it's so much easier to use those. In fact, do I have... I'll see. I'm looking to see if I can actually see the box, because I own a boxed copy of Dungeon Master's Assistant Volume 2, but I'm not sure where it is. I'm not sure if I can put my hands on it. I can't, and I'm not going to go crazy trying to find it, but they were amazing. They're abandonware. If you can work DOSBox, you can work them. About all you can't do with them is print. Now, they were so well engineered that they ran under NTVDM on Windows 7 32-bit. They were very well coded. Greetings, Dungeon Minister. Good to see you. Hello, Yang. Yes, that's awesome, Viking Hat. That is great. I can't wait to see those next week. Yeah, Viking Hat will be back next week, guys. He's on parole next week. But yeah, no, get yourself a copy of Dungeon Master's Assistant Volume 1 and 2. They're abandonware. Run them through. I recommend DOSBox X, and the reason is DOSBox X has a clipboard feature. You can right-click and drag and highlight stuff on the screen and then paste it into Notepad, WordPad, Word documents, emails, what have you. Rather than doing screenshots, you're actually creating text that you can go back and search. So, I do recommend you get those. Long time ago, I did a video about them. Maybe I can be compelled to do one again. The only thing is, so I don't know what kind of relational database the Dungeon Master's Assistant Volume 1 Encounters uses. So you've got to launch the program. Like, the monster database covers all of the monster manual, most of Monster Manual 2, and a few select things from Fiend Folio. If you want more stuff like custom monsters, you have to learn how to use the monster entry system, and it is not intuitive. It is, the UI is just bad. It is not good. So you have to have, if you want to do more with it and make custom monster encounters and everything else, you have got to have the manual, which fortunately, if you poke around, you can find that too. John Stewart, I've been telling Guac stories since it ended. A bunch of friends who plan on signing up next time, and a couple of them may well run games too. That's awesome. Speaking of awesome things, we're at 4670 on the sub count. 4670. We came within about 500. I know it's 330 now, but Guac was prior to me releasing the Gary Gygax interview video, which did mad numbers for me. It did mad numbers for me. So yeah, 4670 we're currently sitting at. So we kind of came within 330 of doing the premium color Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, and OD&D reprint books for someone. So who knows? Maybe next year we'll have some landmark to get to. Maybe next year we'll strive for that 10,000 subscriber mark. Yeah, Road March, tell them about us. But anyway, While you guys are coming up with questions to ask me, there is, I was talking to a fan of the show, all around good guy. We've had him on before. He's a swell dude, Sky Hernstrom. He is a pulp fantasy author. He's a really cool guy. He's got a couple irons in the fire. If you guys enjoyed the interview with Sky, I want to have him on again. Well, I enjoyed the interview with Sky, so I'm going to have him on again. How about that? So that's a thing that's going to happen, and then you guys can enjoy it or not. Esoteric Order of Nerdery, your question. Let me scroll up. I don't see your question, so please re-ask it. Esoteric Order of Nerdery. Favorite issue of Dragon magazine? Any issue of Dragon that has a good, well thought out witch. It's not a fetish. I like the witch as a playable or non-playable character class in AD&D. I'm rather taken with Barnacus, City of Peril, or City in Peril. Just because it's a good map. Barnacus is the city of Highport for me. What makes a good witch? White robes, crystals, and a collection of Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac albums, I think. Anyway, the thing is none of them are perfect. I think some of the witch spells are a little overpowered. So their candle making abilities are really neat, but you just got to adjust those down a little bit. Because, you got like 8th level witches making candles that can do magic stuff that like 17th level magic users can only dream of. No, that is no, Dungeon Minister. No, Esoteric Order, I did not. I will go look on Twitter. Twitter confuses me sometimes. I'm sorry. I'll go look. Oh, good question, Andrew. Good question. You see the space hole? No, they are decidedly not the good guys, given that it's 40K. Tyranids are the worst aspects of 40K villains coupled with xenomorphs from Aliens. They just stole them whole cloth. Originally, okay. Has anyone here seen Alien versus Predator Requiem? You know the poor women in the maternity ward? That's what gene stealers used to do. That's like basically they grab you, infect you, and then in a couple of hours just there was a few more gene stealers in the world and one less human. I think they're okay. Again, Esoteric Order, I have to look at all of them. Man, I said you guys could ask me questions and y'all are just drowning me here. Okay, so I'm going to put this up here. No, the Tyranids are never the good guys. The Tyranids are... It is implied that some high-up muckety-mucks in the Administratum know that the Andromeda Galaxy, which of course orbits the Milky Way, and a couple of other Galaxies Messier 88 are devoid of life because of the Tyranids. That out of the trillions and trillions and trillions of possible habitable worlds in galaxies near the Milky Way, they are completely sterile because of the Tyranids, and the Tyranids are moving through the local group, and the Milky Way is on their next list. This is not like the Tau. You can make a case that the Tau are actually lowercase g good guys. Not the Tyranids. Never the Tyranids. What is my favorite ecology of? That is a tie. It is a tie between the gelatinous cube, because it's the story has got a lovely gotcha ending, and the Periton. Do I have house rules when playing D&D? Of course I do. I have a pretty soft house rule on death and dying. I take the Dungeon Master's guide advice on characters being reduced to 0 hit points aren't dead, they're unconscious. So here's how death and dying work in my AD&D games. If you are at 0, you are unconscious. Healing spell, healing draft poured down your throat, or a whole lot of wine, anything that gets you to 1 hit point or more, from 0, you're conscious and back on your feet. If you are reduced to -1 or -2 in a combat round, so you've got 4 hit points and you suffer 6 points of damage, you're at -2, you are unconscious and bleeding out. Unless somebody stops the bleeding, you will bleed to death. You will be dead at -10 hit points. There aren't saving throws. Just at -10 hit points, you die. And at if you are, like, let's say you've got 10 hit points and you're struck for 13 points of damage, basically you're knocked down to -3 or 14 points of damage, -4, 15, whatever. But if you're dropped to below -3 or -3 or lower in a single hit, you're insta-killed. Even if it's just to -3, something that powerful, you're slain outright. So that's how I handle that. Anyway, Esoteric Order asked, what do I think of Tim S. Brennan's witch classes? Again, I don't think any of them are perfect. I do like the majority of them. They all just take a little bit of tweaking. And if I'm thinking of the right witch class, the Tim S. Brannan is probably the one that requires the least amount of futzing with. So I like it okay. Eric and I what do you want to know about magic items, Dungeon Minister? Go buy them now. Just go get them now, Road March. Right now. Go get them on drive-thru. Just buy them and get the standard color. There's no reason not to. Just do it right now. I love those glasses. They look really nice, but I got to hand wash them. These hands don't fit in those glasses very well. Is there a magic item I ever really regretted giving to a party? No. No, I can't say there is. I can't say there is. There are magic items I know I would, so I've not just dropped on a party. I think something like a Holy Avenger, an intelligent Holy Avenger in the hands of a paladin is the I win button. I'm not saying I would never do it, but like it wouldn't be at like second level. No, I don't think Rings of Flying or Invisibility are game breaking. If I had to recommend just one of my live streams to a new viewer, which would I recommend? A live stream. A live stream or an episode? Do you guys want to watch me have an episode? Is there a magic item I simply won't use? No, I don't think there is. I mean, if it's an artifact level item, the players are going to get what they deserve if they screw around with it. It's a self-correcting problem. If we're talking about something from the higher up appendices, no. Some of them are kind of a pain in the ass for me as a DM to fiddle with. Oh, we have this Rod of Negation. Son of a... okay. Live stream. Wow. I have done so many live streams. Any of the interviews, any of the interviews that I've done live, Jim Ward, Al Hammock, Darlene, Errol, Diesel LaForce the other day. That was, technical issues aside, that was awesome. Tracy's, the streams with Tracy. Because, I mean, other than Gary, Tracy's really the only guy I've had on the show who was there right when D&D began. Think about that. Tracy's streams are excellent because, he was in the room when D&D was being born. So, yeah. Now, if you asked me, is there just a show, just an episode, just a 10-minuter or 20-minuter or something like that, basically something pre-recorded, yeah, probably The Adventure Begins, where I talk about my love of Keep on the Borderlands, tied with my interview with Gary. Because I think it's important that everyone hears that. What is the highest level? Any. Jack says, what is the highest levels? I'm like, any. These DMs who are like, oh, I can't challenge players when they hit 10th, 11th level. Nonsense. That's what the outer planes are for. It's just the next level of adventuring. It's something you want to embrace. I mean, if you don't think there's any good adventure at that level, go find Tales of Wire online. They're archived somewhere out there on the internet. This guy knows how to do. These things are like a novel. Like, I personally think they knock a lot of fantasy novels. And I've talked about them before. I just put it up there. You'll have to hunt them down. But that guy started that party in the early 90s in first edition AD&D, made the transition to second, made the transition to third, then to fourth. And his updates stop like around 2014, 2015. Allegedly, the game is still going on, but it is an amazing fantasy story. And I'm not going to lie, my story of Jane, the Type 5 demoness who becomes redeemed, was not just a little bit inspired by that. My original mechanic was not. But looking at how that went, I'm like, if I could do something that good, I would call myself a good DM. What are the highest levels I've regularly run for? Currently, I've got a group with a couple of characters who are high enough level that they're tied with the last group that I got into but not through against the Giants. Because that group started fairly high level, the group from a decade plus ago. But I have some 8th and 9th level characters in my private Monday night game. Oh, wow. A lot of people have left. Yikes. No, Venger, it is not. Descent into the Depths and Against the Giants, they're not for the meek of heart DMs. I mean, the problem with GDQ is, or with the G modules, is they're really straightforward. They just require a brutal, rough hand on the controls. If I was going to say there's a fault with GDQ, it's that the tonal shift in G1, G2, and G3, boys and girls, let me tell you something. If you want to run GDQ, if you have the combat basics of D&D down pat, and you've read the G modules through front to back, and you understand any potential gotchas that could trip you up. Hello, Alan. Clark, I'm going to get right back to you. Hang on tight. If you know what's what in AD&D combat, and you're a ruthlessly effective wargamer, the G modules will go off without a hitch. Here's the thing. They don't prepare you for the D modules. While you are running the G modules, you must be studying the D modules and prepping them for use. They are your graduate level exam as a dungeon master. The D modules are. It's like going from Superman comics from the 1960s to reading, I don't know, The Lord of the Rings. You have to have your head in the game in the D modules. So Clark asks, what module would I recommend for you to DM for 1E for the first time? Clark, have you DM'd before? Let me ask you that. If you have not, my old friend B2, keep on the Borderlands. You'll thank me. It is a gentle, easy to run lesson in running AD&D. Keep on the Borderlands is nice and simple, but the foundational information it gives you, you will use until the day you set your dice aside and say, I'm just going to play. Somebody else is going to have to run from here on out. Then, Clark, since you have DMing experience, you could probably go for T1 if you're starting a campaign. If you're bringing up higher level pre-gens, the A series is a fun place to start. You jump in around 4th level, survivors come out the other end around 7th or 8th, and it sets you up quite nicely for either Temple of Elemental Evil or, but you have to be careful, G1. First Ed Assassin, have I ever had to DM a player running 1-on-1 difficulties? Did it create? I have never run a 1E assassin as a DM. I've never DM'd an assassin. The closest I've gotten, man, you guys are a lot of questions about evil stuff tonight. It is probably, I had a neutral evil magic user who just played himself as exceptionally selfish and no one cast Detect Evil on him. And he never did overtly evil acts. Just, it was always like, I should be given access to that grimoire. Why don't you give it to me? Just RP'd very convincing arguments to be allowed to do what he did. And then finally, when an NPC paladin detected evil on him, they executed him. The player was fine with it. I didn't handle it good as a dungeon master. It should have been a decision for the party to make. I overstepped my narrative bounds as a DM and had the NPC execute him on the spot. It was a bad bit of DMing on my part. The player was okay with his character dying. He knew the jig was up. There were too many lawful goods in the party. A couple of them were paladins. One of them was a lawful good cleric. They were not going to let him skate. Particularly when he was mocking them, when he was taunting them. But he was a magic user. He was not an assassin. So I fumbled the ball at the 5-yard line and gave up a touchdown because of bad DMing on my part. I should have not taken the player's agency. And if I could go back in time and say, let them decide. And it would have been better role play anyway for the young NPC paladin with a group to be troubled over this and want to kill him, but hesitate to kill him because the rest of the party So I kind of dropped the ball there. I mean, if you're running a completely immoral game and you don't have a paladin or any lawful goods in the party, an assassin's a viable class. I just find this is not on anyone in the audience or anyone who's watching this video. I'm talking about my experience, my observations of other games and at my table. People who come to me and say, let me run an evil character, I'll do a really good job at it, with the exception of the fellow who played the magic user. The sole exception of him, they have to a 1 all they've wanted to do is get their Charlie Manson on to the detriment of my game. And it sucks, but there we are. It just, when people are like, oh, let us do an all evil campaign. Yeah, it'll be like The Mob. It'll be like The Godfather or The Sopranos. No, they just turn into the Manson family. Of course I unalive the orphan. I'm evil. Of course we burn the convent down. We're evil. And I've never not seen it go that way, except for the one most recent time. Again, that's nothing on any of you guys. That's nothing on any of you guys. That's been my experience in other other ways. And I see where you're coming from with that statement, Lux. It wasn't just for his alignment. The guy who was playing the neutral evil magic user was very much saying, yes, I did bad things and you didn't realize it, and he basically was villain monologuing and daring them to do something about it. Again, I played it bad. I played it wrong as a DM. I'm not going to argue that point. But they didn't just like, oh, you detected. This literally would have been a case of, okay, we could possibly let the guy walk. Well, a necromancer, if you remember, a necromancer in AD&D is just a level title. You can be lawful good and have the level title necromancer. It's a very high, it's like 9th or 10th level. Now I want to look. But yeah, I mean, there's no where is it? But yeah, this was I mean, the act of necromancy. There's a lot of spells that are necromancy. I mean, raise dead as necromancy. If you look under the school, it's necromancy. But a lawful good cleric raising a lawful good paladin from dead is not, I mean, so he can continue to fight chaotic evil is not, that's certainly not an evil act. So magic user, yeah. Necromancer 10th level. It goes, for those who are interested, and by the way, I do use level titles in my games. I think they're really cool, and I think you should too. That's some advice. That's some advice from the Dungeon Delver. Anyway, so yeah, magic user level titles from 1st to 11th are Prestidigitator, Evoker, Conjurer, Theurgist, Thaumaturgist, Magician, Enchanter, Warlock, Sorcerer, Necromancer, and Wizard. If a player isn't playing their alignment, do I warn them? It depends. I mean, there are a lot of classes. Like once you get beyond fighter, cleric, magic user, and thief, you start to get into specificity of alignment and how harshly that can impact. I mean, a thief can be, chaotic evil, lawful evil, neutral good. They can't be lawful neutral. But, a paladin always has to be lawful good. I'll drop in-game hints. Like, maybe the paladin's warhorse doesn't want to be touched that day. Like, yeah, you get to walk alongside. It'll let you hold the bridle and the leads, but no, you're not riding that day. Or maybe you get half the points of a lay on hands or something like that. Oh, yeah, Awig, you absolutely have to warn paladins. How do I handle the wish spell? As it states. You get greedy? I want 1,000,000 gold pieces. Point. A little scrap of parchment in your hand that shows a dotted line from where you're standing to that thin gray smudge of mountains over on the horizon. The 1,000,000 gold is in the possession of a family of ancient black dragons. All you got to do is go get it. I wish Tarkus the Bold had not been slain by that evil wizard's thunderbolt. It duplicates a raise dead spell. Now, I might have Tarkus the Bold's player roll percentage chance to resurrection survival, but otherwise, absolutely. I will almost always let Wish duplicate a spell of the same or lower level. Same with Limited Wish. Or even Alter Reality. But I don't deliberately F players. It's like, I wish this village hadn't been flooded. Ha ha, you just turned the planet into a desert world. People are suffering and dying because of you. I mean, that's just BS. That's screwing with players just because you can. So you're being a terrible DM if you do that. Beneficial, non-selfish wishes. I want to raise my stat by a point. Well, no, you get a 10th. That's how it has wishes described as doing that. You get a 10th of a stat bump. So 1 down, 9 wishes to go. See, the smart character will say, I wish I had a Librum of, or a book of, or a tome of, or a manual of that I can study so my level will go up. Modern solutions require modern problems. So that's how I handle those. Any other questions? Any other comments, criticisms, negative, nasty remarks? I'm here for you guys. So you'll have to tell me. What about bring dead PCs back to life? Yeah, absolutely. Again, you're using a spell that like 17th level magic users only can cast, or has a limited number of charges because of a scroll or a ring, or you beseech a djinn. Yeah, again, you're duplicating a much lower level spell. It still requires a system shock roll, a resurrection survival roll. That is sacrosanct. No, I have never had a player want to play a lycanthrope. Why do I buy my minis on Temu? I I don't. Okay. I don't. Okay. The Owl Bear Mini. Wait, which one? Do you want the Greyhawk one? Do you want the AD&D one, or do you want the Chinasaur Owl Bear? I'll actually have to grab some off the shelf if you guys want to see close-ups of them. Yes, I have, Ellen. And I'll tell you guys a story, and this is a sad one because it cost me a player because I was just so happy to be DMing I wasn't playing. I had two brothers in my game, and one of them was very enthusiastic. Well, both of them were very enthusiastic, and one of them was playing a ranger, and I lost track of the ranger player's magic items and some other things. I was basically not watching this side of the table because this is where he sat here in my office. And we'll call him Bob just because that's my go-to, my default. And like there would be times when Bob would be sitting here and his brother would be sitting somewhere else around the table. And Bob would be checked out of the game to the point that he would doze. And eventually he stopped coming. Now, I get it. All of those guys were like actual hard-working dudes, like blue-collar dudes. And so he was just like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it to the next game or probably any others after that. I was like, oh, okay. Well, you'll be missed. And shortly after that, I got an email, and he had his brother, who was still in the game, had played D&D, like going all the way back to the 80s, which is why they were so happy about joining my game, because they weren't playing 3E. And they had kind of come a cropper because the way that Bob's brother Jim played as Ranger, I wasn't paying attention and didn't notice that he had kept hordes of magic item and way too much gold. Bad DMing on my part, I know. This was apparently a habit of Jim's going back to middle school, bending the rules in half. And Bob thought that I just didn't care and that I was letting him get away with it. And it was spoiling his play because he was playing his character legit. as was everyone else at the table. And when he emailed me, he's like, he constantly does this. And it's just kind of spoiled the game for me. Look at his character sheet. And I did, and I told him, and he's like, well, like that suit of magical chainmail, that's made for a giant. I don't wear it. It's just in my saddlebag. I'm like, dude, I'm not keeping that money. I just have caches of treasure buried. Because if I lose all my money over here, that's a legit. And I'm like, so I lost a player because he thought I was favoring his brother, and I wasn't. I was just being a bad DM. It could have been anyone else at the table. It was just bad DMing on my part. So that is a story of failure on my part as a DM. Because he thought I was favoring him. I assiduously steer clear of favoring any players. So the demoness who took on the human name of Jane after she got turned lawful good, I was telling you guys earlier, it was inspired a little. The later interactions were inspired by Tales of Wire. I made sure to background her. And I put a lot of fetters on her behavior. Like if she used her demonic power, things in the Abyss were not happy. Demon princes, demon lords were not happy that Renereme, one of the named Type 5 demons, had split the joint. Nobody escapes. That's their mindset anyway. And one of the players, he's no longer in the game, unfortunately. But one of the players basically got feelings for her. It just fit his character's nature. And I mean, it created great role play opportunities. No, not like that. Get your minds out of the gutter. But I deemed, since she was going to take on the mantle of lawful good, that if she ever used her demonic powers, it would be like a lighthouse. It would tell demons, both in the Abyss and visiting the Prime Material Plane, exactly where she was. So, for all intents and purposes, she was only ever a quote-unquote normal human. The only time she ever used her polymorph self was she got hit with a dispel magic. She was in the area of a dispel magic, and her snaky multi-armed self was suddenly visible for a round while she polymorphed herself back, and I rolled a chance for her to... Basically, I did the psionic table encounter, and Demon Prince didn't show up. But I had to be super careful because I love the character concept and I love the character that I developed. But if I had pushed it, she would have been like the favorite character. And I couldn't let that happen. So when the player retired from the game, I said, you and Jane, you go off and live happily ever after. The player had a lot of serious real world stuff go down in his life right then. And when he told me what was going on and that he was leaving the game, and he just, I was like, Okay. You are appointed to basically a non-combat position by the church. You're becoming the Archbishop of this city of Greyhawk. And of course, Jane goes with you, and you live happily ever after. Story of my greatest success as a DM. That's a good one. Thank you. John Stuart Keller asked, story of my greatest success as a DM. The dungeon fight in G1. The group entered that large square room in G1. You know the one I'm talking about, down in the dungeon level. And they went off, like they broke up in little groups and were exploring different corners of the room. And that's where we ended. Hey, RPG Grandma. Oh, I like that, Venger. So that's where we left for the week. We came back and, you know, there was like 10 minutes of, oh, hey, how are you? How's it going? It's, you know, and I had that room and some ancillary rooms built in Dwarven Forge on my dining room table. And I let everybody talk. I watched the clock. I said, guys, 10 minutes is up. Tell me where your characters are and what your characters are doing. And I went around the table. And once they told me, I started on my immediate left. I said, you hear the sound of heavy footsteps and rough, giantish voices. Roll for initiative. Most of the giants, if not all of the giants, save the quartet of fire giants in G1 that the hill giants had making arms and armor, stormed that room. It was like Rourke's Drift. Waves of giants. Nosnra led a party down from the upper level of G1. And they came down that stair and poured in. And we played for 3 hours. We fought that battle. Just going person to person. And more giants coming in. By the end of it, 2 characters were ambulatory, but all the giants were dead. It was amazing, particularly given the fact that they were spread out. You had a ranger, or no, he was just a high-level fighter fighting this lonely battle in a corner against the jailkeeper and his carnivorous ape pet. You had a magic user holding a corridor, using every spell he had to hold off the giants who were coming down there. I mean, this battle, it lasted all night long. And when all was said and done, there was like a fighter magic user cleric and a magic user who were still up on their feet, able to help the party to like pour potions down characters' throats. It was absolutely touch and go. It was the epic. Like, think of the battle in the tomb of or a Balin's tomb, the Chamber of Marzabal, in the book, The Fellowship of the Ring. Think of the fight in the pleasure pit in Conan the Barbarian. Think of again, Rourke's Drift in the movie Zulu, which is an actual historical thing. Just slamming into the characters, and they buckled and gave way, but literally. Now, I did adjudicate one way. There are two groups of 14 bugbears in G1 in chambers off to the southwest, I think. They're definitely to the south. I had lost track of the hit points of the jailer. The fighter fighting the jailer went down, and he had done like 99 points of damage to the jailer. He had slain the ape, or apes, I don't remember. But he had done like literally 99 points. I was like, oh crap, he's not supposed. He's got like 50 hit points. Fresh bugbears, like 14 fresh bugbears. Because one of the pure magic user was invisible, or maybe it was a fighter magic user cleric. One of them was invisible. So basically 14 fresh bugbears coming in would have pulled apart the visible character like fresh bread. Not the stone giants, and I'll get to that in a minute, Vinger. That is correct, Road March. So the bugbears come in, they see one character, they see all this. I mean, imagine walking into a warehouse and there's Frank Castle and all the other goons have been blown away, and you don't know if that M60 he's holding is jammed or what. Are you going to stick around? No. So I did an immediate morale check because I had screwed up and left the jailer in the fight longer than he should have been. I did an immediate morale check. The bugbears took one look at this and said that no paycheck is worth this. And they split. I think even the player in question was just like, Vamonos. And they were like, boom. You know, this room is literally ankle deep in blood. So they just noped right out, which was my way of kind of fixing things. Because if the jailer had died when he was supposed to, when he was dropped to minus 60 hit points, the fighter would have still been in the fight. And he was getting, 2 attacks, one every other round, and probably could have taken down the bugbears with a little bit of assistance from the magic user and the fighter magic user cleric who was invisible. Jet Li and the one. Yeah, exactly. So, Venger, you asked about the stone giants. They were not close enough to hear this go down. And the party, the two players were able to get enough players with heal spells. They had memorized a couple of, or something. They had a scroll or something that they were able to get a couple of the other party members ambulatory and just get the hell out with their fallen comrades. When they came back in, literally just the next day, because Nosner is dead at this point, right? The only thing left down in the dungeon are the stone giants who are dutifully working away, unintelligent monsters, and semi-intelligent monsters, and the orcs locked in the jail cell. So, hail, Michael Connor, unbreaded. So, when the party came back in to clean things up, and, I think there's like a carrion crawler, there's a room full of carrion crawlers, and then there's the pet manticores, and there's orcs that had been in prison. They were back up to strength, and able to roll back in force and deal with those monsters. But when they got to the stone giants, I can't remember if the Stone Giants basically just said no, or if the Stone Giants came out to see what all the ruckus was, and like the Bugbears, I just said they'd see the dead bodies. That was the guy signing our paychecks. We have no interest in this further. We're neutral. Okay? We're not getting any more paychecks. We're leaving. But they did not have to deal with the Stone Giants, and they did not fight them. Interestingly, and also regarding South Africa and that same period of time, Road March, when I was a kid, I saw Breaker Morant, and I kind of didn't understand it. And Breaker Morant is it's the new wave of Australian cinema, and it is very much a movie about Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War, as it is a dark spot in Australia's past. But Harry Breaker Morant and the Bushveld Carabiners are depicted as being like this elite U.S. Army Ranger kind of force. And if you read up on the history of the BVC, like there were a lot of guys in the BVC who were they were Confederates. They were from the United States. They went to South Africa because they wanted to keep fighting. Breaker Morant is an awesome movie. It is a great trial procedural film. It is a good war story. Harry Breaker Morant was scum. Was he pilloried? Probably. Was he just some good guy who was doing his duty? Absolutely not. He had an almost Colonel Kurtz-like tenuous grip on reality. He was a friend of mine has a doctoral degree in South African history. And we talked about this one night. Long phone conversation talking about this. But Morant really was like Colonel Kurtz. He was, and this was what he said to me. This was his analogy. He said he's like Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. He was out there operating without any conscience, just making up his own orders as he went. He absolutely executed prisoners. It's a hell of a story. Don't get me wrong. We both agreed. Edward Woodward, that's just a phenomenal movie. But yeah, shoot straight, you bastards. Don't make a mess of it. But yeah, Breaker Morant's a hell of a movie. Harry Morant was a terrible person, but it's a good movie. It's a damn fine movie. But could he hang 10? Oh my gosh, yeah. Harry Morant out there, like Robert Duvall's character, instead of Marlon Brando's character. I say that this savannah is safe. I've heard good things about Sound of Freedom. Have I watched Honor Among Thieves? No, I have not. No, I have not. Heidi Gygax, of course. We love Heidi and Eric here on the show. And that's most of what I was doing today was working on the AD&D conversion of the module. It's a lot of fun. And I will be working on it. I'll be grinding through it tomorrow. But Heidi and Eric both said Honor Among Thieves is just dopey fun. It's a fun movie, and she said her dad would have gotten a kick out of it. So, I'll probably watch it on streaming, if it's free with us something, because I just don't want to give money to WotC. Yes, Sound of Freedom, by all accounts, is really good and did really well for a small film. It's opened at like 20 million, which on a budget of 15 million is good numbers. Any more questions or comments or anything like that, guys? Anything you got for me? Anything you got? So that while you guys are typing, this is and by the way, John Stewart, I hope that answered your question about my greatest success. I came up with an idea, but I'm not sure how viable it's going to be. But I was thinking, rather than futzing around, like, this chair works. This chair is fine. I have not. Zulu Dawn is on my list because I've seen Zulu, but it's on my list of movies to see. I was thinking of building a wooden platform with a raised lip around it, just like 4 inches high. Basically, use a 2x4, and then support it in the middle, and then a half-inch thick sheet of plywood, but just a little bit bigger than the footprint of this chair, with a raised lip so it won't roll off of it, to basically raise me up 4 inches. So I don't feel like I'm sitting in a pit over here. Or if I decide to rearrange things. And then that way I can just move it out of the way when I'm not using it. John Stuart Keller says, I was treated to Honor Amongst Thieves was D&D Conan the Destroyer. You'd have to go to Earth or Athos for D&D Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Hey, old Grognard says, build the riser a little bigger so you step on it, then down. Okay. Do I ever attend Dice Tower? I don't know what that is. Is that a con? Because no. I mean, I haven't seen it. So. Upgrade to a Shadiversity Old English Oak Throne. Okay, so I apologize for this. What is Shadiversity? And here's why I ask. Here's why I ask. So there is a fellow. I do not know him. I do not favor him. I do not give him money. I only know him by mention. And his name is the Shadman or Shadman or something like that. Apparently, he's quite the pervert. And he's an artist. And he has, like, his detractors, if he finds, like, let's say I was like heavily arguing with a guy on the internet. Well, you guys know I have a family, and if you follow me on Facebook, you've seen pictures of my family. Well, suddenly I would find art of my children in horrible depictions, or I might hear about it. And other terrible things. And I don't think Shadiversity and this guy are the same thing. But when I hear it, my brain makes that association. Thank you. Esoteric. It's not It's not the Shad Man. Okay, thank you. Alan says, I love DMing Cloudland. I know about it, and I didn't like Cloud. I'm sorry. I didn't like Cloudland. Cloudland had good ideas. I don't know. Maybe I can snag a PDF of it someday and give it another look. But I did know about them. They did a Top Secret, a Gangbusters, a Call of Cthulhu, and Cloudland. Let's see. Shad is an Australian sub. Okay, very cool. I'll check him out. YouTuber that covers middle. That's cool. That's cool. I don't know that I'll get a throne, but I mean, yeah, because I mean, there's kind of going to be some logistical changes around the studio here. But somebody asked me about, because you got like legit questions embedded in there, and I missed it. Do I attend Dice Tower? Obviously, I have not attended Dice Tower. Okay. Can a dungeon exist with monsters waiting to be killed, or do how much realism do I strive for? A moderate amount of like I've met dungeons who are like, they're orcs, they're magical creatures. They literally just stand in the dungeon waiting. They've been in there for hundreds of years, just standing next to it, and I'm like, So I like a bit of organic verisimilitude in my campaigns. Not to the point of, like, case in point, why is green slime green? Can't be for chlorophyll. It hates light. But why is it green? Well, it's green because Gary watched a terrible horror movie called The Green Slime and said, I'm putting that in D&D. Thus, we have the green slime. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't, that doesn't make solid ecological sense. But at the same time, like, if you clear a layer out of monsters, a bunch of the rooms are going to be packed with foodstuffs. There's going to be a midden or a garter robe or something like that. And as far as monsters, shoring up defenses and that sort of thing, absolutely. If you watch the live streams of Keep on the Borderland, when the party went back to deal with the kobolds for maybe the last time, the kobolds have built a rampart defense and shortened their lines. And it became a very dangerous situation for the adventurers. Good night, Clark. So I just try and focus on, okay, well, that would make sense, or no, that wouldn't make sense. But I don't overthink it, right? Like, nobody cares how a beholder has other beholders. Just they don't. Green slime attacks from falling from above or being stepped on. Remember, it can be stepped on. S2, there is a green slime colony under the water in the northeast angled hallway. There's a large patch of it. It has a movement of 0, but I deem that it probably grows. There are slime molds that will grow at a rate fast enough that it resembles movement, but in the case of green slime, not so much that it would represent combat movement. You might see a patch of green slime, for whatever reason, you leave it, you walk around it, you avoid it, it's on the floor. You come back 3 hours later, it's still on the floor. You come back 3 days later, it's not there. Huh, splop. You see what I'm saying? It's just that its movement is so low. No chiwara solo. Ho, 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 ho. It is so slow. Its movement rate is so low that it's effectively 0, but it will eventually gradually grow up. Unlike piercers, which can move at a rate of 10 feet around. And little son bitches are scuttling up the wall to take another one. And I've had players like literally yelling at me at the table because it's like, oh, the piercer. Oh, we gotta, okay, all right, we're gonna keep searching the room. And I'm like, okay, how many piercers are there in here, Bill? Just the 4. You haven't done anything about them. They were legitimately upset. The latest on beholders is that they spawn from the nightmares of existing beholders. That's silly. Yeah, the green slime had a great theme song. So it has no combat move rate. It's not going to chase you down a hall. But if it's not in a comfortable place and the comfortable place is on the ceiling, that's where it'll go. So any other questions, anything at all, any you guys want to ask me? Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. And by the way, guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please click the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. That is super duper helpful, and I really appreciate it. We're doing pretty good on the subscription front. I got to tell you guys, I'm not gonna lie. Let me see. We are at 4670, holding solid. Holding solid at 4670, 330 to 5,000. We should do a little something to celebrate when we hit 5,000. Okay. Oh my goodness. So many questions have come up. Move this back over here. What was my first D&D character? I was literally going back to buying my copy of Keep on the Borderlands. Have been perma DM, so I couldn't tell you. I probably just generated something up, but never got a chance to play it. The first one I remember running, we ran in U1, and I think he was a fighter, magic user, thief, just because I wanted like all the powers, right? Do I try to create a mood in AD&D, maybe finding ways to describe monster in scarier or weirder fashion? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've told this story before, but I love telling it anyway. Arguably the first quote-unquote creepypasta that came out, it's late 90s, actually, is called Ted the Caver. And Ted the Caver is the story of a modern spelunker who he and his friend find a mysterious cave, and they spend several expeditions trying to widen a small hole because they can tell there is a larger space on the other side, and they experience some very unusual things that they ascribe to just like the sound of the earth groaning, wild animals somewhere else in the cavern complex, whatever. And when they finally get through, all these weird phenomena start going on. And as our narrator is crawling out of the crawl space that they've chiseled through, something starts pulling on his rope, trying to pull him back. And they, as quickly as they can, they belay. Is that when you climb up a rope, they belay up? And like the rope that they're climbing up goes taut, like something is pulling hard on it, and they cut it loose. And the narrator talks about like he's suffering like a physical illness and he can't sleep unless all the lights are on in the house, and like all the closet doors are open and lights are shining in him, and like he doesn't hear from his friend for weeks. And so he goes over to him, and his friend's like, yeah, they're both experiencing deep post-traumatic stress. And it concludes with them, with the narrator saying, we're going back in. We leave tomorrow. We're taking like a jackhammer. We're opening the hole up. Both of us are going in, and we're going to find out what the hell's going on down there. I'm taking a camera. I'm going to collect up the equipment that I dropped trying to get through, including a video camera, like a night vision video camera. We're going to find out what's on that. And of course, there's no further blog updates ever. And I have incorporated that into a dungeon. And one of the players, when they passed this small hole, one of the players playing an elf, I'm like, yeah, you think maybe you could wedge your shoulders in there and wiggle through? I took her aside and, based on the Ted the Caver thing, kind of described some of the stuff that she was going on, and it freaked her out. Like, she's not claustrophobic or anything like that. I wasn't gory or, no mentions of SA or anything like that. But she was like, okay, that made my skin crawl, Bill. I had nightmares about that. So good on me. Have I ever played or run the Morrow Project or Aftermath? Yes, I have. I have played Aftermath. Kyle ran Aftermath for myself and Nutshell Gulag, and we had a good 4 or 5 sessions, and we liked it. And we got to the point where we had tackled a sentry robot, just some random kill bot that was roaming around in the desert, and I used my gunsmithing skills and some good die rolls to take its heavy machine gun out. And we were going to attack a Planet of the Apes like village. Like, literally the humans are enslaved by apes, and we were going to take the apes down. Kyle is the thing for apes. But we never continued to play it. Morrow Project I've never played. Would love to play Morrow Project. Morrow Project kicks ass. Online gaming. It seems to me that a DM cannot be paid off with sandwich or chips or sodas as in past times. That is correct. How does a modern DM accept tribute? You can always super chat me. John Stewart Keller. Is there anything I've ever wanted to do in a D&D game that I haven't yet, playing or running? Specific scenario or just stuff that's come up. I've never had players actually take down a god. I've never had players get to domain level play. I've never had players like start families in game. Very high level things I'd like to see. I've never had a player research and make their own spell. And PayPal. Would I play as a player if I had a chance? Absolutely. My dance card is exceptionally full. Hey, Deadly Dungeon Master. So I think that I think that nicely answers that raft of questions. Is a character the result of the player or the DM? The player. The DM, a good DM, is the indifferent, neutral, uncaring universe that creates opportunities for characters to fail or succeed in. It's up to the players to win. One of my joys in being a DM comes from hearing players talk about how they got around me. Fairly, by the way. Someone was on the Discord talking about how awesome it was to like doing a dice flip or a dice fall to get the dice to roll exactly the way they wanted. And if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I'm like, you're never going to play in a game of mine. Or you're going to use a digital die roller. But I don't think the guy was being serious. But anyway, all I can do is create the opportunities. It's up to the players individually, you know. And look, 2 players, 2 fighters, each one's fighting a goblin, you know. In AD&D, roll a d20. I rolled a 19. All right, roll your damage. 8 points. All right, I stabbed the goblin. Roll a d20. Other player, roll a d20. I rolled a 19. All right, you hit. Roll your damage points. 8. I step back and I eye the goblin up and I tell him, "This is your last day on Earth, you orange-skinned horror. You'll trouble this kingdom no further." I rear my sword back and I slash his head off of his shoulders, the defiant smirk on his face, forever obliterated. And he's going to tell the story completely different from the first guy. Same events, but it's going to be up to those individual players. Character wouldn't be the character they are for the game the DM runs. If DM favors low level, you will never play high. Well, and I mean, I think ultimately, like, it depends. I mean, if you're talking about pure mechanics or, you know, material rewards, sure, it can be Monty Hall or it can be sparse or it can be high level or low level or mid level capped or whatever. But you get, you know, the stories you'll tell, I think, are beyond what your players are beyond just stats and that sort of thing and the way you feel about it. Rolled 3 20s in the row at the table one time. It was awesome, and everybody was impressed. That is what makes D&D awesome. Road Marcher, absolutely right. Ow. Ouch. Guys, I am starting to run out of steam. The Guinness is catching up with me. Anyway, tomorrow night, we'll be back. Tomorrow is Thursday. And Thursday, we're going to... Guess what tomorrow? We talked about this a little bit last night when we kind of accidentally ended up looking at the rules for Dungeon. If I can find a good PDF of the rules for... The rules for Hero Quest, we will talk about Hero Quest. We will deep dive the rules for Hero Quest, and we will look at those rules, and we will see what makes Hero Quest so great and why Hero Quest is the best game in the world. Domain level always sounded boring. Well, I mean, I think it depends. Like, if you're still out adventuring, but you have a kingdom that you like have to keep checking up on, I don't think that's boring. But anyway, you guys will see from the update what we're going to talk about tomorrow, whether or not we're going to talk about Hero Quest and deep dive the rules like we deep dived the rules for the Dungeon board game. And otherwise, we'll find other interesting things to talk about. And then on Friday, we'll be playing Gamma World on Friday, because we have no excuses to not play Gamma World on Friday. Now, I do want to remind everyone, of course, that this live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. They provided a lot of the awesome prizes that are going to be sent out to the prize winners soon. And Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures that they'd like to play, whether it's for 5th edition, whether it's for the OSR, or whether it's for Castles and Crusades. Old School is in play at the table with Hellebarde Games, and you can find them on DriveThruRPG or at their website, hellebardegames.com. We love us some Hellebarde Games around here. It should be down in the description. Esoteric. It should be down there. So yeah, just check down in the description and see if it's there. I'm gonna go drink lots of water, I think. And until then, everyone, I love you all. Thank you all for being here. You make this fun to do. You guys do make this fun to do. The question that I would ask you on your departure, however, is, of course, I will find your thing on Twitter and send it to you then, because I'm wrapping up, and it's kind of hard for me to type and copy and paste until I get my desk, but I'll get it to you, I promise. But anyway, while you consider that, Esoteric Order and the rest of you, I want you to ask yourselves, and this is an important question: have you seen my owl bear?
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.